My heart filled with pride as I watched my daughter round second base. Then the outfielder made the mental error of lobbing the ball back to the infield. Batty never even slowed down as she watched the left fielder's throw. I held my breath as Batty just barely beat the relay to third base. How many times had I told her to never make the first or last out of an inning at third base? The fans on our side of the field let out a collective gasp. It was the bottom of the ninth inning of the district championship game. 9 innings. The game had been tied at 2 after regulation, and now, in the second overtime frame, Batty had tripled to lead off. I had been a baseball fan my entire life, but I had never been as excited or as nervous as I was at this moment. My daughter seemed determined to win the game, even if she had to do it single-handedly. The next batter struck out on 3 pitches. Now we had 1 out and a runner on third. The next batter smashed a one-hopper to third base. Their girl playing third was good. She looked Batty back to the bag and then threw the ball to first, and she put a little extra on it. Batty took off for home. I couldn't even make a sound. A lump formed in my throat the size of an apple. Everything seemed to be in slow motion. The first baseman caught the ball and fired a BB to the catcher. Batty slid to the back edge of the plate as the catcher brought the ball around for the tag. It was so incredibly close. Time stood still as everyone waited for the umpire to make the call. After what seemed like eons, he spread his hands down and out, palms even with the ground. Pandemonium erupted. Tears streaked my cheeks. I watched as Brooke's teammates pounded her back and embraced her in group hugs. I knew a moment of regret that the other team wasn't able to win, too. They had made an incredible effort. But only one team can come out on top, and that's part of the game. I was sitting in the car as Batty strode across the parking lot. She was laughing and joking with her teammates. Was there ever a prettier, smarter, more athletic girl on the planet? I was overwhelmed with my love for this young beauty. "Hey, Dad," greeted Batty as she slid into the passenger seat. "How'd you like that game? Don't start in about making the first out at third either, Dad." "Brooke, there are certain basic truths in baseball that have been proven over and over. That happens to be one," I replied. "I wasn't the guy that came up with it, but it's a fact." "How about the fact that my arm was starting to ache, and I didn't think I'd be able to pitch to another batter, never mind another inning?" she asked. "I knew we had to make it happen that inning, or we'd be in deep you-know-what. We'd better ice that up tonight, Brooke. I didn't know your arm was hurting. Did you tell your coach?" I prodded. "No, Dad. That would have put her in a real quandary. She would have had to pull me, and she didn't have anyone else to put in. Nancy has a sprained ankle, and Stephanie has some kind of flu. Now we go to States next week," grinned Brooke. "That sure beats ending the season, doesn't it?" I marveled at the kid sitting next to me as I drove. I had changed her dirty diapers and taught her how to ride a bike. I showed her how to throw, catch, and bat. Now she was the reason her school had won districts and was going to States. I smugly allowed myself some of the credit for her many scholastic and athletic accomplishments. "Where are we going, Dad?" wondered Brooke. "You missed the turn for Route 6. "We're going to celebrate winning districts, sweetheart. I've heard that the new Hilton here in Wilkes-Barre is rumored to have one of the best restaurants around. I think we both deserve a big steak and a baked potato," I announced. "Dad, you're the one that likes steak and potatoes. I'm going to order lobster. May I suggest that you wash your steak down with a frosty mug of MGD?" laughed Brooke. "Hey, I never thought of that. But now that you suggest it, I might just do that, Brooke. You're a genius." "Yeah, I know. The fact that we've been recycling those beer cans all my life has imprinted on my brain, Dad. It's more like I'd have to be a moron to not know what you like. You don't vary much, you know," cheated Brooke. When we entered the restaurant, there was a 10-minute wait for a table. I was handed one of those things that lights up and vibrates when my number is called. I sat at a bench while Batty went to use the ladies' room. She was back in about 5 minutes. I wasn't paying much attention, and it took a few minutes for me to notice there were tears trickling down Brooke's cheeks. "Brooke, what's wrong, baby?" Is your arm hurting you? What is it, sweetheart? I asked. You know how Mom couldn't make my game because she had to go to Philadelphia for her job? Sobbed Brooke. So that's it. Brooke, you know your mom has a high-powered job in that insurance company and she has to travel a lot. She really wanted to go to your game, but her schedule wouldn't allow it, I reasoned. Don't get upset over it, darling. She'll probably make it to the States. Well, I don't give a shit if she ever goes to any of my games. She can go straight to hell, cried Brooke. I was stunned. Batty never spoke ill of her mother, and she never used vulgar language, although she had heard it from me on occasion. Her emotional outburst was a complete shock to me. Oh, Dad, you're as blind as I am. Mom didn't go to Philadelphia. She's sitting inside with some slick bastard, holding hands and laughing. She doesn't give a fuck about either of us. Batty couldn't have surprised me anymore if she had told me that she had just signed with the Yankees. My wife, Brooke's mother, involved with another man? I felt dizzy. Batty wrapped her arms around me and really began to bawl her eyes out. Tears began streaking down my cheeks as well. How could one of the best days of our lives go down the tubes so fast? I broke loose from Batty long enough to return the vibrator light thing to the hostess and then wrapped my arm around Batty and led her back to the car. I helped her in and then crawled into the driver's seat. I didn't start the car because I could barely see. The two of us just sat in that lot for another 10 minutes. Gradually, the nausea, shame, and horror lessened, and I was able to dry my eyes and concentrate. Brooke, are you sure it was your mother? I asked gently. It's possible you were mistaken. We may be upset over nothing. It could have been someone that looks like Deborah. That was probably what you saw. Right, Dad. I don't know what my own mother looks like. There must be a few thousand purple Lexus SUVs around with personalized plates that say Nat like that one over there. I must be seeing things, wailed Brooke. I looked in the direction she indicated and saw Deborah's car a few rows ahead of where we sat. There was no mistaking that. I'm sorry, Brooke. I guess I was just trying to deny this could actually be happening to me, to us, I apologized. It's pretty obvious that it's your mother in that hotel. She's lying to both of us and cheating on me. We have to accept that fact and determine what to do now. Then my cell phone rang. I knew who it was before I even looked at my phone. It was Deborah. I didn't want her to know that Batty and I knew where she was and what she was doing. At least not before I could decide on a course of action. Hello, Deborah, I answered as calmly as I could. Hey, sweetheart, bubbled Deborah. How did the game go? I'm dying to find out who won. The game, we won it and we're off to States next week. Batty played well, I understated. Put her on the phone, darling. I want to congratulate her and tell her how proud I am. I wish I could have been there, lied Deborah. Well, she's off with some of her teammates right now, Deborah. I'll relay the message, I promised. Are you in Philadelphia right now? Driving down Broad Street as I speak, laughed Deborah. This traffic is moving slow, so I thought I'd call to see how everything went. Be careful in that new car, Deborah. You're driving your Lexus, aren't you? I probed. Of course I am, Tim. I love this car. It's very safe and not as thirsty as your Ford. I have to go now, Tim. I'm almost at the hotel. I love you and I'll call again tomorrow, she promised. I just hung up and looked at Brooke. It appeared that she was going to break down again. Then she sniffed and smiled at me. Right, Dad? Asked Batty rhetorically. We can live okay without her. Probably even better. We can if you stop using profanities, young lady. That's no reason for you to behave like you have no class. I raised you better than that, I chastely said. I'm sorry. I was just so mad and it seemed like only swear words properly fit the situation, Batty explained. I'm better already, but I worry about you, Dad. At first, I was only thinking about how little my game meant to her. She'd rather sneak off to get porked by some stud muffin than watch me play in the district championships. I didn't even think about how awful you must feel. Well, it certainly hurts. I admit that. I don't know what to do next. This is such a shock. I can't even think straight. Really, Dad? I would think you'd toss her sorry butt out so fast her head would swim. She has totally disrespected you and me. The lies, even without the boyfriend, would be enough to divorce her, don't you think? Asked Brooke. It seems like it would, but I've found over the years that it's best to think things through rather than to act in haste. I can always file for a divorce. I just have to be sure that's the best course of action before I do, I answered. Dad, do you have a spare set of keys for Mom's car? If you do, give them to me, please. I have them, Brooke, but why do you want them? I questioned. It seems to me that it will be the final proof. If the keys work in the car sitting over there, we'll know beyond any doubt that Mom isn't checking into some hotel in Philly, reasoned Brooke. I gave Batty the keys, and she trotted over to the car. As she approached it, she clicked the keyless entry, and I saw the lights blink. To my surprise, Batty climbed in and started Deborah's car. She waved as she drove past me. I quickly started my car and swung around to follow her. I didn't have to follow her very far. She went down the block and pulled into a Best Western parking lot and drove to the back corner and jumped out. As she neared my car, she pushed the button to lock Deborah's. Then she climbed in with me. That's just a little taste of how Mom's life is going to go, laughed Deborah. Imagine when she can't find her car. She can't report it stolen in Philly very well. Her story would fall apart under police questioning. If she reports it stolen here, she'll have to explain why it was here when she said she was driving it in Philadelphia. Lies really complicate everything. I didn't know whether to be proud of Deborah or make an appointment with a psychiatrist. I never would have thought of such a fiendish idea. The more I thought about it, the more I liked it. We stopped at the Burger King down the road a few miles and ate some fries and a burger. Then we headed for home. Batty began to ask some thought-provoking questions. How long do you think Mom's been running around on you, Dad? Do you think she's done it many times? Why do you think she does it? How has your love life been with her? Brooke, I've been wondering about that. She's been very good to me lately in the bedroom. I really can't complain about that. As far as how many and how long, I have no idea. I never thought she was especially wanton, I admitted. Obviously, I had no idea anything was amiss. Women do that to lessen their guilt. How long ago did she start that? Quizzed Brooke. I don't know. It was probably around the Christmas holidays. I thought life had been going great the last 5 months. I know Deborah's been away more than usual, but she always seemed eager to make it up to me, I allowed. You know you have to go to the doctor for a checkup, right? You don't know who Studley has been with, do you, Dad? Anyone he slept with, you slept with, as far as disease is concerned, Batty cautioned. I can't have love with her anymore, however. I've lost any and all desire to be intimate with her. I'll go for a checkup and just find ways to put your mother off until I can decide where to go from here. Just be sure you take care of yourself, Dad. I'll be depending on you more than ever. When you decide to divorce her, I'm going to live with you. That's for sure. Stated Batty emphatically. Why are you so certain that this will end in a divorce, Brooke? Isn't it possible that Deborah and I can work it out? Deb, you are always gentle and kind to Mom and me, but I know how you think and feel. You'll never be able to accept that Mom leaves to you. I wondered how many men in my position, and there probably have been millions over the years, have a smart daughter they can discuss things with. Batty was keeping me from falling apart. She made me look at the situation logically rather than emotionally. She had only my best interests at heart and no hidden agendas. How could a man have a better confidant? The next day, I made an appointment to see a doctor. After work, I stopped at school to pick up Batty after practice. I arrived a little early and watched the girls take batting practice. Other parents were going out of their way to praise Brooke's play in the districts. I felt pretty good about that and lousy about my marriage. Deborah came through the door around 7. I tried to greet her the same as usual, but it sounded weak to me. I wondered if Deborah would notice. I needn't have worried. I missed you so much, Tim, gushed Deborah. I'll show you how much later on. By the way, I was wondering if you still have that extra set of keys for my car. Sure, Right in my pocket, I answered as I reached in and pulled her spare keys out. Did you lose your set? No, or I wouldn't have been able to drive home, would I? Deborah answered a little too quickly. I was just thinking I should have that spare set in case I did lose mine. Okay, I agreed, and I handed the keys to her. She must have found her car, but she was suspicious about how it got moved. Now she'd be more careful. As if on cue, Batty walked into the room. Hey, Mom, how was Philly? Have a good time? She asked. I didn't go there expecting to have a good time, Brooke. Those meetings are long and difficult, insisted Deborah. They are not fun. Okay, Mom, long and hard but not fun. I'll remember that. Why do you keep that job if you suffer so much? Wondered Brooke. Dad makes good money and you're smart. You could find something that gives you more free time to spend with us. I love my work most of the time. Besides, I won't always be spending so much time traveling. I think it'll wind down by the end of the year and then I'll have all kinds of time to spend with you two. You'll see. Deborah then rolled her small suitcase into the bedroom and closed the door. Batty motioned for me to follow her into the kitchen. Hear that, Dad? It sounds like Loverboy is going to be moving by the end of the year and you can have Mom back then. How does that deal sound? Lies and possible STDs for another 6 months or so, and then it's over. Unless she finds a new stud, of course. Is that a solution you can live with? Asked Brooke. You certainly deducted a lot from one sentence, Brooke, I observed. That may not be what she was saying, and it probably wasn't. Remember, I grew up around both of you, and I know how you both think. Mom believes she can have this fling and then go back to normal next year and no one will be any wiser or hurt over it, maintained Brooke. Well, it's a moot point, Brooke. I can't live with this arrangement that long. I can hardly live with it for a day. This is a real stressful situation for me, I confessed. Well, it'll stay that way until you take steps to resolve it, Dad. These things don't just go away by themselves. You know that. That night I told Deborah that my back and head hurt, and then she suggested that I lie still, and she would do all the work. It cost me a lot of effort to talk her out of love. That's what my life had come down to. I had to talk my own wife out of making love to me. I took great offense to that. The next evening, when I watched Brooke's team finish practice, it seemed like a couple of the girls' mothers were friendlier than usual. Batty noticed it too. She mentioned it on the way home. Dad, did I see Emily's mom holding your arm while she was talking to you? It looked like she had her key cups pushed against your arm, too. That's no accident when a woman does that, Batty assured me. Then I saw Mrs. Thomas offer you a drink of her soda. You seemed to be the stud of the softball parents all of a sudden. I thought it was strange, too, I admitted. I had the distinct feeling those women were unusually friendly for some reason. Could it be that since you'll soon be a free agent, they're getting in line to sign you up? Quizzed Brooke. What exactly are you talking about, Brooke? They don't know I may become a free agent. Besides, my market value isn't that high, I concluded. I may have mentioned that my mother was cheating on you to the girls in the locker room last night, revealed Brooke. Emily and Steph were especially interested to hear about it. Both of their fathers took off on their moms within the last few years. They seem to think you'd make pretty good stepdad material. Apparently their mothers agree. I was once again flabbergasted by something my daughter told me. She told her teammates that Deborah was cheating on me. Why not just put it in the paper and on the web? What were you thinking? This isn't something everyone needs to know, Brooke. This is extremely embarrassing for me. Did you ever think that maybe other people already know, Dad? Isn't it even more embarrassing to be oblivious to a situation everyone else knows about? The girls already knew it. Trudy's mom saw your loving wife and a man go into a room at that hotel a few weeks ago when she was there for a conference. The only difference is that now the girls' mothers know you know about Mom's cheating, so it won't seem like they're home wreckers. Let's face it, our home is pretty well wrecked already, Batty concluded. How many times can a person be shocked before it becomes normal and no longer shocking? Other people knew I was a cuckold. Somehow that made the whole thing seem even worse. The last shred of my pride was torn from me. Nothing would ever surprise me after this week. There's more, Dad. Sarah has been complaining since last winter that her father has been away a lot. Last week, she told us they were moving after Thanksgiving because the insurance company where her father works was transferring him. Last night, Trudy's mom saw Sarah's dad pick her up after practice, and guess what? Tonight, I walked with Sarah to her car and verified it, Batty revealed. He's the guy that was with her that night. I saw them. My head swam with all the information. How could kids figure so much out? Could this all be coincidence? Was there even such a thing as coincidence? Can our kids know us that well? Why did I even pretend to think? All I had to do was ask Brooke. What do I do now, Brooke? I groaned. I can't think straight anymore. Well, I'm glad you asked, Dad. I knew you'd look like a pretty good catch to most soccer or softball moms. Those ladies pretty much confirmed that today. You don't have to put up with a woman that lies and cheats. You deserve better, and I'm going to help you get it, Batty asserted. First, though, you have to get rid of the deadwood. It was the night before Brooke's first game in the state playoffs, and Deborah had to make another trip for work. She promised Batty she would drive all day if necessary to be back in time for the game. That final lie helped ease our consciences. Room service knocked on the door. He was carrying a bottle of champagne. I had convinced the management that the couple in 402 was very close to us, and we wanted to surprise them. It had all sounded very friendly and loving. As the door opened, I stuffed a 20 into the guy's shirt and grabbed the champagne and pushed in. Brooke, Sarah, and Sarah's mother followed me in. Deborah was in bed, clutching the sheet to her neck. Shitwad had a robe on and seemed totally bewildered. We hate to bother you two at work, I began. It's just that Sarah and Batty wanted to celebrate winning districts with all their parents. The fact that Sarah smashed a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 7th to tie the game and then made a game-saving catch in the top of the 8th, while Batty pitched a 1-hitter and tripled in the 9th, and scored the winning run seemed to have escaped you two. Try to imagine how proud Susan and I are of the girls, and then imagine what you missed. Truthfully, you can't. You had to be there, and you weren't. Susan held the 4 glasses up, and I poured champagne into each. I had actually opened the bottle before room service had knocked on the door. I handed a glass each to Deborah and Dickhead. Here's to the truth and to our daughter's accomplishments, I toasted. Here's to the new direction our lives will take, and Sarah and her mom not having to move this fall. Most of all, here's to smart kids and good lawyers. Sarah's mom, Susan, and I gulped the bubbly while the girls sipped their sodas. Don't bother coming home, Steve. Sarah and I will do fine without you. My lawyer assures me that the settlement will allow me to keep the house and live comfortably. Sarah won't have to change schools again. You get to keep that cheating girl, so I think it's pretty fair. Susan grinned, but without any mirth. Tim! Brooke! Cried Deborah. I love you both. Don't do anything rash. This isn't what it looks like. Well, I for one am glad to hear that, Deborah, I responded with relief. Which part did I get wrong? Look at the bright side, Mom, added Brooke. You won't have to lie to not attend any of my activities. You'll be able to make love to whoever and whenever you want without guilt. You won't have to worry about giving Dad AIDS or STDs. You won't ever see how sad he was when he found out he was a cuckold. I know you want the same as me for Dad, and that's for him to be happy. Somehow, I think he will be now. Thanks for everything, Mom. Just don't embarrass me by showing up at anything I'm involved with, okay? All 4 of us filed out the door as Deborah sobbed softly. Subscribe to our channel to keep your partner from cheating on you, and listen to the next story because this story is nothing compared to the next.